I'll start with a review for this book, A Time to Build. I'll give this book 3 out of 5. It has some good ideas, but I felt that many of these ideas and explanations were obvious and already spoken in many other books, so I haven't felt like that much of new material that has been covered in this book. So I felt like it's kind of redundant a little bit. Mainly, it's also pretty well written, so that was not the issue, but didn't really felt like I learned much new stuff here. So I would not necessarily recommend this. Let's see the notes. The pressure from society is less than it was before, but institutions are weaker to handle such pressures. So it's not that pressures has increased, it's more that institutions are weaker to handle the pressure that there is from the population. According to the data, confidence in institutions are going down. People are less and less confident in institutions, and institutions are not as it used to. Many people in institutions are trying to build their own brand rather than doing the actual work, such as in Congress, sports, etc. So people care more about their own brand. They don't care about doing the actual work and doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying to build their own brand and trying to get attention rather than do what they're supposed to do. And I feel like I think that's one of the good points in this book, that's what we become. Everyone wants attention and views, and instead of doing the actual work. Congress is mostly hostage for a few legislators who hold many laws. Most other members can't do much legislation. So there's not much to most legislators, most congressmen and women don't have that much power. So there's only a few of them that really have the power because they can swing right or left on most votes. The rest already know or already doing whatever they're doing. So what happens is that the only few of them really have the power to do things. Trump, more than other presidents, is addressing the government as an outsider. So when he's talking about the government, he's talking about them or it, the deep state, things like that. Even though he is in the government, he is supposedly in the head of the government, but he's addressing the government as an outsider. And that's something that was not present before. News outlets are playing more into the culture war. The rise of social media also makes it harder to distinguish between journalists and their news outlets. So there is more and more news outlets that become or taking part in the culture war. And another book I read, Why We Polarized, he also speaks a lot about it and also has some explanations. One of the explanations there was that we and the institutions are just giving it to us. This is not what he's talking about in the book here, but that's one of the ideas. And a good point he had it here is that there's also hard to distinguish between the journalists and their news sources. So there is a journalist that worked for the New York Times, for example, and they have their own Twitter account and they write something. Is that the journalist or is that a reflection of the New York Times opinion? Who is it? And it's really hard to distinguish, and many people are confused and confusing for sure between the two, and that's also raising some problems. In colleges, it seems as we have forgotten how to disagree. Less and less there is place for disagreement. People want their safe space, and there is no discussion. Even when there is disagreement, we don't know how to disagree. Rates of conservative professors are going down. In social sciences, it's even more steep. So it used to be higher, it's going down now. And even in the social sciences, we can see even a steeper decline. Interesting. Students expect institution to enforce political correctness as they think this is authority. They think that this is how authority is being practiced, and they expect institutions or companies to enforce political correctness. Side note, there are many obvious ideas and explanations. Much of the book, I felt that it's topics that has been widely discussed in books, in articles, in the media. So it's kind of like the same, I felt like it's the same thing over and over, nothing new. And also explanations, some of them are like redundant. It's like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's like, keep on going. He's explaining internet and very obvious things. Maybe he's talking to like a different type of audience, but I feel like it's redundancy. According to the author, social media allows us to not have contact with people as many services provide such things. The question is that a problem though? What if this is what people like? He says like that's a problem because people are now able to talk less and less and they're not doing so. The question that I have here is that a problem? Or could be that it's a problem, but maybe that's what people like. He says like that's not what people like. Maybe it is. People don't want to speak to strangers. People do not want to order in person. They prefer order online. They prefer having less contact with people. You can ask the question of why. But I think it's pretty obvious that people want that and like that. Our society falls for recency bias, which means we have short-term attention span to whatever is on the news, which is a good point. A recency bias. We have a very short-term view on things, and we quickly move between one thing to another, to the next news thing, and even very important things are out of the news cycle quite quickly. Elite is a function of society. Someone will always be on top. That's something that many people seem to forget, that there's always will be someone on the top. It's kind of a function of society, even in communism, even in more egalitarian societies, there is always someone on the top, which they will be the elite. Some people want less power for institutions by wanting more of them and more power for them. It's kind of like a irony right there. It's not gonna work always because you want less power but having more power. It's how does that work exactly? And some people don't understand. And that's it for the notes. So again, it's a 3 out of 5, kind of redundant. If you really like politics, it might be for you, but I haven't felt like there is a good stand on things. And also another point is that many like his ideas, the time to build and that future, like his idea for the future is kind of missing. There is not really a good point of how to build, time to build, how to build. It's like he has like a utopian view, but it's kind of I would have to say that unrealistic view on how things will actually turn out. If you're being realistic, none of it will happen. And it's a good idea, could be, but that would not actually work. That's what I think. And that's it. Thank you.